Namaste and welcome to the Live Lounge, beautiful soul family. It's so good to be here with you on the Live Lounge Soul to Soul podcast. I'm Caroline Crawford.
And I'm Paul Crawford.
And it's so good to be here with you. Please remember, if you're on YouTube when this goes out, to like and subscribe, share, and we'd love to leave you, again, always leave your comments down below because that just helps it get out to a wider audience, which is a great thing for us and for everybody else to be sharing in that community. So
yeah, well, we wanted to just do a little bit something different rather than having a topic, just to give you a bit of an outline of where we came from, our involvement with our development, yeah. And then where we see things going, how we feel about things, and that, you know, bringing into that uplifting energy and that expanded consciousness into everything. So Caroline, do you want to just kick things off and tell us a little bit about how it all started for you?
Well, I can really go back to very young years when I was around 2.5, and I know it was at that time because my mother and I, when I was a little bit older, went and looked at the date. My great-grandmother, Charlotte, had passed away. And when I was a little girl, my mum would take me up to my grandmother's house because my great-grandmother also lived there. And I would run through the house. There was a long passage, what we called the back room. She'd be by the fire. She was very elderly, always covered in a blanket. And I'd sit on her lap and she'd tell me stories. And then one day my mother and my grandmother blocked the way and said, no, you can't go. And I was quite, no, you've got to go and play upstairs. So off I went. And as I was playing in the room, my great-grandmother just appeared to me physically as we see each other now. And she said, I'm in what you call heaven. I'm happy and I'm fine and I will always be with you. And it just felt completely natural to me. I wasn't shocked or upset or worried by it. I was like, oh, okay, carried on playing. And it left such a strong imprint on my life that I've continually remembered that. And when I went downstairs, I said to my mum, why didn't you tell me Grandma had gone to heaven? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've just seen her. And she was like, oh. And in later life, I asked her, why did you kind of not bring that out into the conversation? Why didn't we talk about it? She said, because I really thought you would be chastised for it. So I can understand that. She was in her way. She was trying to protect me. But as life went on, I'd have the occasional visit from my great-grandmother. And I grew up in quite a violent, abusive home. Not my mother, my father. Might as well just say that. And, through these kind of, sometimes these energies that were around, I was quite a sensitive child. I was very anxious as a child growing up. But through these energies that Spirit brought through for me in later life, as I got older, it did give me a sense of calm. And I kind of sometimes lived between two worlds and very much in communicating with the animal kingdom as well. I grew up with horses and ponies and dogs, and I was forever bringing stray dogs home. But I always had a strong connection with what, the others would say, oh, that's a naughty horse. I'm not riding that, he's crazy. And I'd be like, no, he's fine. And I always had such an affinity and connection with them. But then beyond that, these premonitions and this communication with Spirit just continued to get more and more. And in one of my premonitions, I was told that my life partner I would meet by the sea. He'd be of mixed race, and his name was Paul.
And here I am.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't till a few weeks, I'd been with him that I realised that. And these visions and then the clairaudience began to come in where you hear Spirit. So I hear them quite clearly, sometimes more than others. The visions of the third eye, the clairvoyance was becoming really more regular and more often. But when my nan also then, when she passed away, she appeared to me at the end of the bed as well. And I just felt this, I don't remember her saying anything, but she was just radiating this calm energy just to let me know she was okay. And then when I moved to London, that's when my whole life kind of really changed. It really shifted up gears. I met my best friend. Well, Paul's my best friend, but my girlfriend Jeanette. We're still friends now for over 40 years, and we'd talk late into the night, as you do in your 20s. And I'd say I'd feel the presence of spirit, and she was the first person that really accepted that and understood that, because her grandmother had also been a gypsy Romany. So we'd feel these energies, and it was just amazing. And then when I met Paul, that just opened up a bigger door. I went to a spiritualist church. I was told I was a naturally gifted healer and medium. I mean, I really hadn't heard of a healer. And I sat in the mediumship circle there, and I'd just be reading off all these messages, seeing spirit, hearing spirit, and people going, yeah, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't know where it's coming from, but it felt good. And people were saying thank you so much. It had really helped them with certain things. And then I felt that it was the healing that I really wanted to develop, because I felt if you could help somebody else's suffering, I felt there was nothing of higher service that I could do. And I really went into the healing side of things that kind of worked alongside, because I became a medium professionally and clairvoyant. But yeah, the results with the healing was just quite phenomenal, really. And with animals as well as people, feeling, my hands get boiling hot where there was an area of imbalance, and getting intuition feelings through into what could help that. And a lot of what have caused that, and that still remains a big part of my work now. I can feel get the mental patterns of what has caused these imbalances in the body, which is everything. We've always said this begins with a thought. And when we have had trauma and upset and conflict, it does cause our mental bodies to become out of alignment, that then will manifest, if not addressed and healed, into the physical body. So that's been, such a great stage of my learning and my growth, which I thoroughly enjoy. We then became Reiki masters. We, spiritual healing, energetic healing, Reiki healing. It's very much all the same thing. But again, we're also starting to teach Reiki again here. We've got our course running next month, so we're excited about that.
But it is.
But
it's funny how it all evolves.
One step to another.
Yeah.
So and then Paul,
and it was.
your upbringing was very different.
It was
to
very
mine.
different,
Yeah.
and I actually was involved with spiritualist churches from a very young age. Predominantly we were brought up in the supposed orthodox way of the Church of England, and I never really fully resonated with that. So at some point in time I did drop that off. But I always stayed with the spiritualist church because of the ethos and that connection and understanding. It really just brought something more to me. And then I suppose it was really in my sort of like mid-teens that I more consciously started to develop my connection to spirit a lot more. And that was encouraged by my family, thankfully, because my nan, my mum, my auntie and my sister, they were all very psychic. And my nan formed this, what was called a closed circle. It was where you had to be like invited. It was a much more contained energy sort of thing.
I wasn't allowed.
No, you wasn't allowed, was you?
No.
And as I say, there's 3 generations of my family there. And in that time, as things were progressing, it was really becoming, I started to feel all this tingling and energy coming through me. And I always remember this one particular occasion. We were just coming to the end of our meditation time. And all of a sudden, my face was tingling as if it was on fire. It was like electricity just pulsing through me in a really loving, fantastic, amazing way. And as I was sat opposite my sister, she said, "Oh, Paul's face keeps changing." And first of all, it came up as Abraham Lincoln, and then at the click of your fingers, the face changed, and this went on for a good while. Anyway, after the meeting, I felt inspired to go and we started saying, well, why Abraham Lincoln, and whether that was a connection to my American side of the family. My dad was American. But funny enough, we had a set of American encyclopedias, so we went up and had a look in there. We looked up Abraham Lincoln, and it coincided that the date that he was shot of that month and that date was what that date of that day was. So it was really kind of this this connection of showing that anything is possible. And really my connection to spirit really took off from that, and the channeling started to come much more into being.
And I think in a way it was really good that Paul and I developed independently of each other, because I found my path and he found his. And you know, mine's very much the mediumship, Paul is the channeling. And yes, I channel now, yes, I do light transmissions. But for Paul, I think that was such an integral, powerful part of his development and his life. And we're going to come on to what Jarama has shared with us that we haven't really shared before. But my first main guide I ever became aware of, and I can feel his energies coming in, was, and I was told from the platform on the church, and again in the circle by somebody that hadn't heard the original message. I had a native Red Indian American chief called Chabuka, and he still comes in now, and I used to feel this huge presence just coming over me, and he felt really wide and really tall and powerful, yet very loving, very gentle. And he was also what they called my gatekeeper, which means, you know, he made sure who was allowed to come through to me, which is, that's why I feel I've always felt very protected. Nothing really has ever worried me with spirit. We used to do rescue work as well.
That was always
people's
interesting.
Houses that were possessed, you know, and I just found it great, you know. Yes. So Chabuka was one of my first ones, and then that evolved to another Red Arrow, that he started to bring in another element for my development of the spiritual writings, which sometimes it would be philosophy and wisdom, but other times, because it was a time when Paul suffered a lot with his Crohn's disease, with these health issues. And to be honest, 3 times he was very close to passing over to the other side. I mean, we can laugh now, it wasn't funny at the time, because I had very little support from my family, actually none, to be honest. And this support I was getting from these non-physical, benevolent spirit guides was just so comforting and strengthening for me. It's just beyond words. I can't tell you how helpful it was. Particularly, you know, do you remember that time he was in the hospital and he hadn't come out of recovery, and this nurse came over, and I was also at the time studying yoga, ancient traditions, philosophy, because I was studying for 2 years to be a yoga teacher. And this nurse came over, she said, "God, your husband's been in recovery for over an hour, aren't you worried?" I said, "No, not at all, he'll be fine." She said, "Well, if that was me, I'd be really worried by now." And I thought, God, it's a good job I had that strength and, you know, wisdom and calmness within me, because otherwise, I mean, could you imagine if you didn't? That would have just thrown somebody over the edge. But that developed further into me becoming a much calmer person after being very anxious and a real worry. I'd worry about everything. Now I rarely worry, because I just go into that truth, go into that, you know, where meditation has helped me immensely develop into the person I am, to connect more to those energies of my soul, of my higher consciousness, of my guides. And in fact, at one point they told us, didn't they, they don't like to be called guides because they never take away our decisions, our choices. They like to be known as our spirit family. So we often call them more our spirit family. But yeah, that's been such a great influence in my life, and how it's made me become a lot calmer and a lot, you know, more understanding. And then that, the more calm you are, I feel that opens up your vision and your energies further to expand and keep expanding, and just feel that alignment.
But I think it is, it's like you mentioned about when I was ill, and often I would say to people, you know, I thank my illness, and they look sometimes gone out because, you know, it wasn't a great time. But coming through that, it kind of taught me so much, and it really enabled me, I feel, to get even more in touch with that stronger part of myself, which is my soul, which is my spirit. And I allowed that to play a much larger role of who I am, and allow me to take that forward more. And that coincided with Red Arrow, who was working with Caroline, to actually then to start channeling through me as well. But before that, I think the real thing that kicked it off with my channeling was with Chibuka, Caroline's gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And it was one Saturday. We never normally used to meditate on a Saturday, because we used to like to get out and do stuff, have fun, and everything else. But on this Saturday, Caroline said, I really feel we need to meditate. It was almost like Spirit have got something to tell us.
Just compelled to meditate.
And our son was down one of the local parks, and he was very psychic as well. And something said to him, go home now. And he started walking, and then he said, go home now. And he sort of like, he felt compelled to run. Yeah. And anyway, I was so grateful there, because both us, Caroline and our son, was there to really witness me going into trance for the first time. And that was, that was just so incredible.
It was.
Where I just felt this loving, really expanded energy coming in, but also coincided with, I felt like I was really growing, and I was like 8 feet tall. My thighs were growing bigger.
Well, they did. You could see it physically. His thighs. Do you remember the Incredible Hulk? It almost felt like he was going to burst out. His thighs expanded. His chest expanded. It was, and Matthew and I were just overwhelmed with this loving feeling. I had tears streaming down my face. It was just so powerful. And the message he brought. It
was talking about that we were here for a purpose, as many of us are, to bring about that really divinely guided expansion into, to create a better humanity, a more consciously aware humanity. And I think that's really taking off now, and how we are within ourselves now, everything that we've gone through and learned.
And I always remember him saying that the world has to be ready for the teachings, and I think that time is coming now.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that kind of morphed into the drama consciousness coming through. And I think they're all part of that same team. They're all part of that same consciousness and awareness. And that again brought so much... so many teachings to us, a real great understanding.
Yeah, I mean, for me, without doubt, the teachings and understanding I've received and have been influenced through Jarama has been just immense, because I could ask directly deep delving questions on life, on so many things. He didn't always give me the answer, I have to say. I remember asking him once, when did the world begin? He kind of laughed and said, you'll have to wait. But... it was just such a time of opening and acceleration for us both, wasn't it? And he also said about our past lives together, that Paul and I had lives in ancient Egypt, very powerful lives, and there's a reason why we're here now at this time, to bring about this deeper understanding. And I think there's going to be a lot more truths coming out, things that have been deliberately hidden from us, that we have been so manipulated by other forces, that this now is the tide is really turning, and I can feel there's going to be a lot more truths coming to light that has been hidden.
And I think as well, it's kind of as part of that, and as we've grown, we've learnt to start trusting more in that divine timing of things. So rather than it being on our linear time, it's in that divinely guided time. And it's kind of created this knowingness within us, this energy that we're all moving towards a new reality through that expandedness of being able to almost like shape-shift reality into how we want it to be, by coming through from our true infinite loving selves. Yeah. And it's just something that I think is just going to grow more and more and more.
Yeah. And I know that, I had a lot of help through... I had several miscarriages, I had an ectopic pregnancy, and then we had a stillborn little boy, Nathaniel, And one of the great teachings and healing I received from Jarama is that, you know, in truth, there is no loss. Rather, it's just a change, a transformation in that energy from one form to another. So there is never really a loss. And the more in tune we are with ourselves, the more truth we're in tune with, the more we connected to that infinite energy. And I know for some people that's quite a hard pill to swallow. But I mean, I allowed myself to grieve, but I just didn't continue to carry that on. You have to realize, you know, everything has its time in this world, and we're here for a short time, some longer than others, but to just know that it was their time. It was that time for that soul to make its transition, or maybe not to come on the earth. But there's always something that your soul agreed with, that soul contract through our lives, that we can begin to start to open to that truth. And that helps us be so much more relaxed and joyous and positive. And it's helped me through the spiritual teaching become a lot more focused, to not be so distracted by drama and, you know, things going on.
But you find that though, don't you? The more balanced you are, the more connected you are to your soul and your spirit energy, you are more relaxed with it, because there's like this deeper knowingness that is driving you forward to in more inspired ways, and it's allowing us to go beyond these physical limitations or the currently perceived physical limitations. And I think we're starting to move into this realm of going beyond that, of being much more than that, of entering into a reality that is far beyond what we currently can perceive and understand in this current moment in time. And that is where I think so many have been talking about this shift in consciousness, this shift in reality. And I think that comes about through us having that stronger connection. And I think part of everything that we've been through in life has led us to this point now, and allowing us to take us forward with that greater purpose, that deeper understanding.
I think integrating the teachings, you know, and living, being true to ourselves, being true to our word, it's all part of integrating that great truth of our soul and going beyond that veil, if you like, to being more in connection with our soul, to being more in touch with the non-physical that exists to really help us ground and integrate those higher energies, so we can birth those onto earth in a much more expansive way, you know, because the more that we come from love, from understanding, from compassion, from non-judgment, just think what a beautiful world we're creating when we resonate from that energy of our soul through our heart, and not allow these judgmental thoughts or any thoughts of hatred or separation to take hold. You know, so the more we can move into that energy of compassion, of joyfulness, of, you know, and I just want to say, when we emigrated to America, I had no idea of just how much that would really accelerate our growth. All those that I can see that are online with us now, they've all been such an important part of our development, of feeling that love, of feeling that support, and being inspired to become even greater than we already are, to just keep moving into that greatness of our souls that, you know, I've said before, we are all part of the divine. We are all fractals of the divine. And I think that's just remembering that we are multidimensional and drawing in those energies of our higher self from our highest state of being into the earth plane, because that is how we're ascending one by one, by living our truth from our love, from our light, and radiating that as we love and support, you know. And having interests and hobbies is such an important part of our finding wholeness. So, you know, those of you that know me know in England I had a horse, Tetley, that we would go out on regularly, and Paul would come on his bike.
I loved it, you know, because I had a real passion for mountain biking. and then combining me being on my bike and Caroline being on our horse,
Yeah.
horse Tetley, going through the forest.
Yeah.
So you're part of nature, but there's something about experiencing it in that most direct way.
Well, nature
and
does
it really, it really expanded on things.
Nature really, it contains certain frequencies that enable us to feel more whole, to feel healed, to feel relaxed, to feel more peaceful. And when we're in nature, because she's always radiating that energy, that's why we feel a deeper state of relaxation. Being by the water, I mean, and now it's kayaking, and we cycle occasionally, but you know, sharing our lives with friends here really has helped our growth exponentially. It's just beyond words. It's just so, you know, Sarasota, they call it the city of light because there are so many souls coming here to raise the frequency of the earth. So I think we should talk about our visions because of...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think in the last year or so, we've kind of, or maybe a bit longer than that, I'm not sure, but we've come more into the energy of light language, which has really started to expand and create another dimension to ourselves and how we can communicate with people. So you're not really communicating with words, but it's through the energy of it, the resonance of it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, for me, that has now started to evolve and come into play in the most unusual way. And when it takes place, people are saying how it really does affect them. They really can feel the energy of it, like interacting with them.
I know Julie's watching here live, and I know when I've done light language to her in a healing session, she's actually said she's felt herself leave her body in a lovely way. And what that is, you're connecting to your higher energies. So maybe we'll talk about that a bit further in the show. But the visions that I am holding is to really be in service to others, to humanity, and raising the awareness and awakening us to that wisdom, to that truth, to that beauty within us. Because as we reconnect to our divine nature, that oneness, that truth that we are, everybody benefits. We do, the animals, our family, our loved ones, the whole world. And this is how we're creating this new earth, by allowing the truth of us to come out and radiate and be an accepting of all parts of us, even the parts we sometimes get frustrated with. Just pour love on that, pour light on that, and remember, you know, that greatest thing to help us expand is stillness and meditation.
Yeah, and I feel that throughout, the more that I allow myself to step into the power, the true power of who I am, not with any ego or anything, but through that loving energy and understanding, life just seems to take on a whole new meaning. Everything that I do now seems to resonate in a much higher loving vibration and frequency. And that creates a whole new way of experiencing things and drawing experiences to you, because as you resonate, as you think, as you then create your reality, that is what you are drawing into those same experiences. And I think in moving that forward, as we allow ourselves to really resonate the truth of our being, that real core strength of us, that infinite divine energy that we are, we will start to experience a reality that is way beyond what we currently do. And I think that is where people have been talking about this new world existence. And
I do know that more non-physical beings, galactic beings that are part of our galactic family, are interacting with us with a lot more in our meditation time, in our stillness time, in our dreams. And when humanity's ready, when this aggression has been dampened down, I think I know they will be making their presence known a lot more fully. So I'm going to leave with one of my favourite quotes that came to me from a meditation, and it is, as together we walk this path of infinite beings of light and love, and that continual unfolding, we come to realise that nothing exists outside of consciousness. And in truth, we are that consciousness. So shine your light, connect to your higher consciousness, bring heaven on earth, because that is where we are all going.
And I think allowing yourself to be the true you through that loving energy and create the future that will be just so magical to live in and experience. Absolutely, beyond the stars.
Yeah.
It's funny, every time you say something like that, I always think of to infinity and beyond.
Yeah. So take all our love. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. There was so much more we could have said, but as always, time. So, if you want more of this, more of opening up on anything, let us know. But thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for listening. We trust you've enjoyed this. We hope you have. And this podcast, as I say, could go again to more of that information, but we look forward to your comments. We look forward to being with you next month. Keep shining your amazing, multi-dimensional, beautiful light and focus on that frequency, remember, as you keep creating your reality even more amazingly from within your heart and soul. I love you.
I love you too. And that just leaves us to say,
Namaste.
Namaste.